I made a mistake yesterday.
Oh?
Yep. Pretty major mistake.
What is that?
I went to the gym for the first time in ever.
Oh, congratulations.
That's what you say.
Mm-hmm.
Hey. Must be out of shape. Things. My legs tried to cramp up about the middle of the last night. So
oh, yeah.
That was fine. That was great. Enjoyed that.
What
really perks you right up in the middle of the night when that happens.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, how was your first gym experience beyond the cramping? What?
I was in a gym with several other people who were also in a gym doing gym things. And that's not my natural habitat. I don't know if you know that about me.
No, I am aware of this about you.
It was off to see the foreigners. It was okay.
It's like Jane Goodall among the chimps.
That's right. I mean, I will admit, I don't think I'm going to mention which gym it was.
Mm-hmm.
But if you've been to this gym and you hear my following explanation, you'll know which gym it was.
Which means someone will, of course, be revealing it in the comments.
Of course, because everybody's a jerk. The nice thing is that this particular gym is set up in such a way that nobody is spending all that much time evaluating everybody else in the gym. It's like the general thing seems to be mind your own business, take care of yourself, let everybody else worry about themselves.
Mm-hmm.
You know, which is good. That's fine. I didn't feel like I was on exhibit.
Right.
So it was okay. I was only there for about half an hour due to the aforementioned physical stress.
See, I think you and I have actually joined the same gym.
I believe we have.
I have not yet had my first gym experience. My first actual gym experience will be Tuesday.
Mm. You signed up for things, didn't you?
No, I didn't actually sign up for anything. It's just that I decided that I need to, it's not enough just to join a gym. You actually need to have a routine and set a schedule. Mm. So I decided that my workout schedule starts on Tuesday and, it's every other day.
Mm.
So.
Okay.
I bought a planner, sir.
Oh, you bought a planner?
I bought a planner. It's got a fancy calendar with a bunch of deadlines written in. The deadlines have already been scratched out and changed.
Well, that's good. Yeah, at least we know you're using it as normal. You've totally integrated into your regular life at this point.
Well, I started using the planner 5 days ago on Monday the 14th.
Right.
So 4 days prior to today. And of the items that I filled out this week, 70% of them were done as scheduled and 30% of them have been rescheduled.
Well, that's okay.
Yeah, that's not bad for a first week.
Yeah, that's not bad at all. Yeah. The rescheduling thing is actually, I think, a good thing. People should be willing to reschedule things that they can't cram into the time they've allotted.
Yeah, there were certain things that if I tried to cram them in the time I had, I would have ruined them. So
right.
Yeah, and
that's good.
And you're absolutely right. Like, schedule should not be a straitjacket. A schedule is a way to set goals and to prioritize things. And if something is not going to happen, then at least you can reschedule it. It empowers you to make sure that it doesn't just get missed, or you don't just say, okay, well, then I'll just do this tomorrow and just keep pushing it off a day and kicking the can down the road. You just set a new deadline for it.
Right.
That's
useful advice for people who have trouble prioritizing and completing tasks. Not that we know anything about that.
Yeah, not that we're in that business.
No. But yeah, the gym thing has been good. For the one time I've gone, it's been good. I don't know. I go late at night, so I go after 8 because apparently my local its busy time is from 4 in the afternoon till 8 at night.
Huh. So
I go after 8 and then I can have a mint while I'm at it.
I don't know about, my local gym here, the one that I have joined, they have a pizza day, a free pizza day, and a free bagel day.
See, I saw bagel day on Tuesdays. It's bagel day. I bet you not much work gets done then.
And there's also a jar of candy on the desk when you check in. I'm not sure that they understand gym.
I don't either. It's a jar of candy I cannot have. It's just thanks, but no thanks. No, yeah, bagel day. I didn't see a pizza day. I saw a bagel day, which apparently is Tuesdays. I didn't know.
Yeah, and so the birthday fairy apparently visited this morning.
Oh, did it?
Yeah, it was a very odd thing. Around 4:30 this morning, I was because I'm an extremely light sleeper.
Okay.
So I was awakened by an odd noise of crinkling. And my eyes kind of opened, and just out of the corner of my eye in the shadows, I caught Allie moving around in the bedroom. And she was heading out, and I looked and I said, "What's that crinkling noise?" And she immediately, so I sleep with a white noise machine, normally playing the sounds of rain, because I can't cope with silence or anything with a pattern.
Right. So I like to be alone with your own thoughts. Got it.
Oh, I can't. So she's like, "Oh, that's your white noise machine. That's the sound of the rain." I'm like, "No, what's that crinkling noise?" And she yelled at me. She's like, "Go to sleep." And then she said, "I wish you could sleep. I wish you weren't such a light sleeper. You're the worst person ever."
Oh, happy birthday.
And so apparently, because I only half remember this conversation, she told me about it this morning. And so apparently I said to her, what about Hitler? What about Judas and Brutus and Cassius? Are you saying I'm worse than those people because I don't sleep? So this morning I get up, because I normally get up well before her. I tend to rise between 6 and 7 in the morning. And then I'll take a shower right away, make myself a cup of coffee, and I'll sit and play video games while I wait for her to get up, and then we start our day. So I wander out and immediately stumble over something. I step on something squishy and rubber and nearly killed myself. Because I go out without the light on. Turn on the light. Apparently in the night, the birthday fairy decided to cover the entire floor of the living room in balloons.
Oh.
Covered our coffee table in birthday confetti.
Wow.
And then put a little gift bag on the coffee table with a note giving me permission to open it now.
Oh, wow. So
I opened it up, and inside there's some candy, there's some Reese's Pieces, there's a little movie trivia game because I love trivia. And there's a can of silly string. The little spray string.
Right.
So I look up, and at that point, the birthday fairy is standing in the hallway, and she sees that I have opened the silly string. She runs away. She runs back with her own can of silly string and immediately attacks me.
Wait a minute.
Yep.
Kind of birthday fairy does that? That seems unfair.
So it was at 6:30 in the morning. I awoke to nearly killing myself on balloons and then a silly string fight. So she sprays me with the silly string. I immediately spray her back, and then this horrible odor begins to fill the room. And some of the silly string hit the wall. So she bought this off-brand silly string from the dollar store.
Oh, dear.
I don't know what it was made out of, but it doesn't string properly. So it kind of liquefied a little bit. Now it's like oozing down the one wall. It's oozing down her shirt. It's all in the carpet. So at 6:40 in the morning, me and the birthday fairy are trying to clean the walls and the carpet before anything stains and costs a security deposit.
Right. Happy birthday.
And then she went back to bed for half an hour.
Ah.
Yeah, so that was my birthday morning. And then we went out to breakfast.
That's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, it's the thought that counts, as we've said more than once.
Yeah, it was a memorable morning.
Yeah.
And then I spent the morning after that for, okay, you ever just start doing like something for absolutely no good reason, and then you find yourself just like, you're like, so I rubbed one of the balloons on my head and stuck it on the ceiling.
Uh-huh.
Why? Who knows? I just did.
Because you can.
And then for the next 20 minutes,
mm-hmm.
I had to stick all of the balloons to the ceiling.
Uh-huh. And did you?
No, yes, they're actually all still there.
Oh, good.
Mm-hmm. It's just one of those weird things that, like, 2/3 of the way through, I suddenly look around and I'm like, what am I doing? Like, why is this what I'm doing with my day?
Having fun in spite of myself is what I'm doing.
So I may not be 29. I may be 9.
Oh, you might be. That's true. You're tall for a 9-year-old, though.
Yeah. Speaking of gift giving and the tiny one,
yes.
I realized that there is a Christmas story that I have to tell. Because I made a promise to tell it.
Okay, I will. Okay. I will buckle in for the Christmas story. Should I get a mug of cocoa first?
Oh, sure. Okay. This will warm the cockles of your heart.
Oh, those.
Whatever those are. I'm not sure your heart has cockles.
I think
the cochlea is in the ear, isn't it?
Yeah. And cockles are. You know what? That's an unprofitable road to go down.
Is it?
I think we end up with British snacks, I think.
Do we end up with... Wait, hold on. I thought cochleal means spiral shaped, doesn't it?
Sure, but cockles are a they're kind of a sort of a clammy sort of a thing, clam mussel kind of thing.
Okay.
That the British apparently enjoy, at least some of them. At least on the British shows that I've watched in the past, they seem to have as a sort of street vendor type food. You didn't know that one, huh?
No, I didn't actually. So now I'm looking.
Yeah, they're bivalves.
It's a bivalve mollusk.
Indeed.
Bilaterally symmetrical and heart-shaped when viewed from the end, hence cockles of your heart.
There you go.
And as with many bivalves, their sex varies according to the stage of their life. Mm-hmm. That is, they don't become female unless they get old enough to be female. Until then, they are male.
For someone who didn't know what they were a couple minutes ago, you certainly have the lowdown on them now.
Well, okay, this is the funny thing. Like I popped open, obviously, the source of all knowledge to look up cockle.
Yes.
But I actually did just watch an entire 10-minute video, and I'm not even sure where, about how clams, mollusks, and oysters reproduce. Mm-hmm. So this just feeds into that. So it's that part about the sex of the individual, this notes they are gonochoristic, which means the sex varies according to conditions. And because I happened to have just watched that video the other day, I knew that meant that it is according to their life cycle, because they are male until they reach a certain age. And then they can become female because it is much easier to, biologically, it is much less resource intensive to be male than female. Mm-hmm. It's easier to produce sperm than it is to produce an entire young. In this case, an egg. So until the mollusk has completely matured and has gone through its entire life cycle, it doesn't bother with the whole female thing.
Well, there you go.
Yeah. So, what was that effect? We did a Word of the Week episode on it where you learn some fact and then it just keeps coming up in your life.
Yeah, we did that episode.
Yeah, we did.
Mm-hmm.
And I cannot remember the name of it now.
Neither can I. We've done so many episodes now.
Yeah, I'm done actually. I've run out of things.
You were telling us that story to tell us a different story.
Well, actually,
something about something. I don't know.
Yeah, actually, I just wanted to acknowledge someone who did a really big, helpful favor for not a favor. Obviously, he was paid for his work, but he still went above and beyond for me during the Christmas holiday. It's someone I met at a convention. So the story is this: 2 years ago, in the beginning. So 2 years ago, Allie, the tiny GM, she happened to mention to me in passing that she had joined or she had been on this website. It's called Pottermore. It's the Harry Potter official fandom thing.
Oh, they have a fandom, do they?
Yeah, and this is all very official. It's like all created by J.K. Rowling and all of that stuff. And
I really didn't think those books would ever take off.
No, and yet here we are.
You
know, though based on the most recent film, they're really trying to kill him. Holy crap, was that awful?
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, on Pottermore, among other things, there's all these little like activities and games you can play. One will sort you into your Hogwarts house, and one will sort you into your Ilvermorny house. And one will tell you what your wand is, because as I'm sure you'll remember, every wizard's wand is unique and of a particular length and made of a particular type of wood with a particular core, and it is good for certain types of magic. So 2 years ago in passing, she mentioned that she had been on Pottermore, and she just happened to mention the statistics of her wand. 9 3/4 inches elm phoenix feather core, which I looked up, and apparently it's good for advanced charms. And it is actually preferred by pureblood wizards, because apparently elm wands they demand a very, very skilled hand. So it's a sign of what would you call it? It's like a sign of your prowess that you have an elm wand, because they're very picky about the skills of the person involved. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. What does matter is that I wrote this information down on a note because I knew that someday far in the future, this would be useful to me. So last year in November, we happened to be at the Gamehole Con, which I mentioned.
Sure.
And there was a local woodworker. I shouldn't say local. He's from Indiana. He's from Indianapolis, Indiana. So semi-local. Local means a lot different out here in the Midwest. Local has a much bigger range than it does where I came from. So anyway, there was a woodworker, and he was selling his work, including a bunch of wands that he had turned on a lathe in the style of the Harry Potter films. They weren't like official Harry Potter wands or anything, but they looked the part. So I managed to, with a couple of clever lies, shake Tiny long enough to be able to talk to him. And even though it was a very fast project, because, it's like less than a month, he agreed to make a custom wand to those specifications. So I was able to make her wand, or have her wand made for Christmas. I presented it to her on Christmas morning. I also made an official looking certificate like you get from a wand maker, because apparently this is also part of the part of the thing. Like if you go to the Ollivanders store down at the like Harry Potter World and Universal Studios, you get an official certificate identifying your wand. So I made her an official certificate for her wand also. And she absolutely loved it. But I just wanted to say publicly, if anybody needs any woodwork done, go check out Jerry Savage's work. He's on Facebook at J Savage Creations because he did a really amazing job. He did it fast. He gave me a good price. And I'm really overjoyed with him. And there was a point where it seemed like it got lost in the mail and I had to reach out to him, and it hadn't gotten lost in the mail. It had just gotten lost being delivered to my parents' house. But he was immediately responsive to help me make sure that it had gotten delivered and everything. So, and he was very excited to hear how she liked it. You know, she wanted to hear the final result. He does a lot of really nice work. It's mostly lathe work, so he does a lot of turning. But he makes handles for all sorts of different stuff. He also does frames. He also makes jigsaw puzzles. I'm now looking at his Facebook thing because he's done some more stuff since I reached out to him. And wooden plaques. And these absolutely beautiful pins. And he's also going to be at GaryCon.
Oh, okay.
So yeah.
If anybody's curious, my wand is apparently a 14.5-inch Elmwood unicorn hair core wand with unyielding flexibility, whatever that means. Just thought I'd throw that out there. I'm also in Ravenclaw and Thunderbird. Is that the thing?
Yes, Ilvermorny, you're a Thunder. I'm a Thunderbird, but I'm a Hufflepuff, and I don't remember what my wand is. But
apparently my Patronus is a Marsh Harrier.
My Patronus is like a field mouse or something.
Is it? I've always suspected that of you.
Yeah. I'm very mouse-like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
Hey, would you look at me, though? The one thing you think is timidity.
That's right. I'm apparently running a game on Monday.
Oh, are you?
Yeah. It's, I'm going to tell you what the game is, and then I'm going to tell you that, no, I'm not going to be recording it.
Oh, good.
It's a Terranoth game in the Genesis system.
It's say that first part again. What? Eternoth?
It's a Terranoth.
Terranoth. Oh, right. Sorry.
In the Genesis system.
Right.
I have 3 victims whom I will abuse mightily throughout the course of the adventure. And it is intended to be a one-shot. No, I'm not going to record it. I'm not, because you know what's happened since the last time I mentioned Genesis and now?
Mm-hmm.
There's about 5 different podcasts that are all Genesis live plays in one form or another. So you don't need me to record it. Somebody else has done that for you.
Everything doesn't have to be recorded.
I know.
Like, you are allowed to just have fun with your friends.
I know. I'm aware.
It actually, because I get asked all the time, so I have started running a live Pathfinder game with actual human beings around my dinner table.
I have heard this rumor.
And we actually had our first game last Saturday evening. So our second game is tomorrow. It only took us 2 months to actually get from character generation to first game.
Okay.
But a lot went on in that time, including the holidays.
Mm-hmm.
So we ultimately decided to just put it off until the new year. So, anywho, people keep asking me if I would, record the game and put it out, or, and one of my players even said, hey, we should record this and do it as a live stream. And I just, I don't understand the urge that everybody around me seems to have to televise absolutely every part of their life. A certain person in my life who shall remain nameless because I don't want to end up sleeping on the couch.
Right.
Whenever she starts, a lot of times when she plays video games, she insists on streaming it on Twitch. She's not necessarily talking or interacting with anybody. She's streaming it. And I don't understand that urge to just make sure that you are always available for people to watch, you know? I think it's just a generational thing.
Oh, you think?
I think so. Taking pictures of everything and posting them on social media and stuff. I mean, I used to be much more active on social media than I am now. But even I don't have the urge to like take pictures of absolutely everything I'm doing and like tell the world, oh, now I'm at this place and whatever. I've never understood that stuff. I really don't.
I'm gonna forward promote based on what you've just said.
Okay.
Perhaps you'd like to listen to Book on Tuesday when it comes out. Because one of the books discussed there is called The Circle, which has some things to say about the very subject which we are discussing.
Okay, see, I thought you were actually just being funny.
No,
by promoting your book discussion.
Take it as both.
Okay.
But no, the book that I talk about on the first episode is very much related to this point, which is that for some reason, everybody seems to require a witness of some sort. And the system is set up to encourage you to be as open and public about everything you do as possible.
I'm actually reading the back cover now. It looks fascinating.
It is for a certain value of fascinating. There are things you have to be aware of, and if I tell you about them now, then you won't need to listen to the episode.
Well, I will definitely consider reading the book.
Okay.
We're talking about the novel by Dave Eggers, right?
Yes, we are.
Okay. I will definitely consider reading the book.
Excellent. It's interesting that is that. I mean, you're not wrong. There seems to be this, and it's definitely not our generation.
No.
That's into that. But there seems to be this urge to get things in front of everybody as much as possible.
You know, see, if I start speculating, I'm going to lead myself down a really bad rabbit hole of like psychoanalyzing things and then saying things that will upset and offend.
Right.
But because it's like a constant need for applause.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah, it's some would say that we have gone from a position where we were satisfied with our own satisfaction, our own pleasure in an activity or a thing or whatever, to only being satisfied with everybody else's attention, pleasure, and satisfaction with what we're doing.
Which, you know, that it's actually very interesting because we have talked in the past about like the idea of getting paid for GMing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like the sort of what's in it for me aspect, or if I'm doing this anyway, I should be able to earn money for it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Do you think that comes from the same place? Like this loss of the idea of just being able to instill something with meaning simply because it satisfies you? And like just seeking an extrinsic value in everything. An externality.
Well, as certain people I know are fond of saying, your time is valuable.
Yes.
And I, you know, yes, it is, but some of it is more valuable than other time.
Mm-hmm.
Your time is not all equally valuable across the board. But a lot of people seem to think that if they invest any amount of time at all in something, it needs some sort of reward beyond just them enjoying whatever it was they were doing. Like that's not enough. It's not okay to just enjoy a thing for itself by yourself.
Well, I wonder if it's... I'm going to get myself in trouble here.
Yes.
I wonder if it is less about the enjoyment. See, like if I really wanted to go down a philosophical rabbit hole.
Uh-huh.
I would wonder if it is about an inability to inject meaning into something and sort of an inherent nihilism of the age.
I have no data with which to either support or unsupport that.
I have some, I don't know if I would call it data, but I certainly have a number of anecdotes that I'm not sure, because some of them are very personal, and I'm not sure that I'm comfortable discussing them.
Right.
But, like, I don't want to throw out an alarmist phrase like crisis of meaning.
Mm-hmm.
But if I wanted to write a book, and I was the sort of social commentator who would write a book, I think I would have a thesis here.
Okay. So I'm going to throw Mad Max at you.
Okay.
All right. The most recent Mad Max film, Fury Road.
Mm-hmm.
You saw that?
I did not, actually.
You did? You totally should watch it.
I have heard that I need to see it.
Yeah, you totally should watch it. It's an excellent film.
Yeah, I've heard that. It is on my list.
Good. Bump it to the top. Anyway,
Okay.
The opposing side, I can't remember exactly what they're called now, but the typical wasteland car cult guys, right?
Right.
That you get in every Mad Max film.
Yeah.
They had a particular thing where they would do nothing without having their leader witness them doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. In fact, that was kind of their battle cry when they were going to attempt something they felt was going to be amazing or interesting or cool or whatever, something important. They would shout over at him, "Witness me," and then do whatever they were going to do.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All in an attempt to be validated and achieve, and I may be speculating rather heavily here, but achieve some sort of position in whatever passed for an afterlife.
Sure.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the reason I mention that is because to me, it seems like a lot of what people are doing is of the same sort of motivation.
Right.
They need to be witnessed doing a thing in order for that thing to be validated and made to feel important.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, see,
because it's not enough just to do the thing for doing it.
I know this is a loaded phrase, and I trust the people listening to us not to lose their minds when I say this. But one of the things that keeps popping into my mind right now as we discuss this is the concept of virtue signaling.
Yes.
Of going online and making sure that people know that you are believing in something that you should be believing in, that makes you a good person. Mm-hmm. The idea of waving a virtue flag,
Right.
Which, and I know for you and I, we've seen it in, say, game designers that we are big fans of. Mm-hmm. And they feel the need to go on social media and express that they support a particular social or political policy or are against a other social or political policy, just to make it known that they support or are opposed to this. And like, I have backed off of following game designers on social media because I can no longer separate the stuff I want, which is them talking about their game design, from the noise of them making sure that everybody knows that they believe in the right things.
Right. And I feel like it's essential that we point out that this happens on both sides, regardless of which side you're on.
Yes, absolutely 100%. I have stopped following pretty much everybody on both sides.
Yeah.
Because I just, you know what? Look, I personally have political viewpoints. Believe it or not, there are things I believe in, things I don't. I have moral viewpoints. Okay. Mm-hmm. It's just that I also am a gamer, and anybody who wants to sit down and play a game with me is welcome to sit down and play a game with me. I don't have to agree with them in every aspect of their life. And I don't assume that everybody has to agree with me. I don't even believe that everybody has to agree with me to be considered a moral person. There may be people who do things that I look at and consider immoral or amoral, depending on the thing. But I also am not so egotistical as to think that I am the beginning and the end, the final arbiter of morality. If they're hurting me, then I don't want to play around with them. But if they're making a choice that I consider to be amoral or immoral, but they are not affecting anybody but themselves, it's like, well, you do you. I don't have to agree. This is going to be a very personal statement I'm about to make. I am bisexual, and I have had friends in my life, and I still have friends in my life who take a very conservative view of homosexuality and who feel that it is a sin because of their own personal religious and moral standpoint. I have friends in my life who do not support marriage equality for homosexuality, and I have my own views on the subject. There is nothing in that stops us from being friends, because although they feel that, there is something I have done that is immoral in my life and that, whatever, they personally do not judge me or take it out on me. It is for me to resolve with my own morality and whatever higher moral authority there may or may not be. And that's the beginning and the end of it. My own parents are not supportive of it. They did not like it at all. Still don't. But they don't love me any less, and I don't love them any less. And it's just, it's just the way it is. You have to accept that, they tolerate me. They accept that I don't believe things the same way they do, and they don't treat me any worse for it. It's a matter of tolerance. I'm not going to ask them to change their viewpoints for me. But getting back to what I was saying, I'm using that personal anecdote to point out I can game with anyone as long as we're just sitting down and playing a game.
Yeah. And
even if they bring something into the game that they don't personally agree with, or that I don't personally agree with, say we were playing a game and somebody decided that in their world, the GM running the campaign, the world was, had a very conservative view of homosexuality. Okay. I mean, that's fair. It doesn't change who I am. It's fine. If it got to the point where they were using it to preach or something and I felt uncomfortable, I would certainly say something. But, I can accept that without it taking it as a personal affront, It doesn't have to affect everything. You don't, as long as you have some common ground, you can sit with people because nobody agrees with everyone 100%. You take two people who claim to be in complete political alignment and you tick down one issue after another, you'll eventually find something where they don't agree. Even if it's just a particular nuance of, yeah, I believe in this particular thing, except in this case. Even if it's just a corner case, you'll eventually find a place where two people who are otherwise morally aligned don't agree. And you have to be able to cope with that.
I've maintained for a long time that when it comes to playing games, the only thing I'm interested in about you is whether or not you want to play games.
Yeah. That's it exactly, 100%. And more importantly, having that common ground lets you talk to people you disagree with, which is very important.
Yeah.
It is very important to hear views that are other than your own and to listen to them honestly and understand where they're coming from,
See, this, I don't know, and I realize we're circling back to a topic that we covered many, many episodes ago, or attempted to cover many episodes ago. But this is where my problem with the gaming community comes in.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Is that much of the gaming community seems to think that the best way to handle people who have differing views than you do is to exclude them entirely.
Right.
And that is not the way it works.
Well, eventually it means that you end up very alone.
Well, and this is true, but what it also means is the more you exclude somebody you disagree with, the more you push them into a group that is composed only of people who agree with them.
Right.
And that's not healthy. That is not, even from a basic standpoint of trying to find a common ground of understanding or a common agreement in how things are supposed to operate. That doesn't help. That only serves to further divide things. Whereas what is supposed to be happening, if you're an actual community, is that the people that are part of that community, because they value that community and they want to be in it, gradually begin to, through examples learned from other people, through just, general discussion and whatnot, they begin to become more and more in accord with the overall values of that community. All right. So your outliers, the people you don't want to be around, the people you don't want to allow at your game table in this particular instance, you're actually harming them by excluding them. And you might feel like justified in that. Sure. Okay. That's their punishment for holding those bad thoughts.
Right.
Those incorrect opinions. But then you have to ask yourself, how do they ever learn not to be that person and not to have those opinions or those thoughts or whatever if you constantly cut them out of a normalizing environment?
Right. And that is exactly the point, is that you actually empower your, I don't want to say enemies, because I think that's where this all starts. I think this all starts with one day everybody sort of woke up and decided that if you don't agree with me on this or that moral principle, it's not a matter of disagreement. It is, you are my enemy. It is, you represent evil. Okay. Which also, and the problem with that is it ascribes a motive. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's, even if you oppose something that I really, really want, okay, that doesn't make you an evil person. You're keeping something from me, sure. But if you do have to kind of assume that everybody's, I don't even know where I'm going with this. Never mind. Because
you have to assume that not everybody in the world who disagrees with you is malicious in that disagreement.
Yeah.
It's not that they are an evil person. It's not that they are out to get you. It's not that they wish to do you harm. In many, many cases, and I've learned this through the work I've done over the years, okay, the various jobs I've had and whatnot, particularly in this case, my work in the boys' home.
Right.
I've learned that in many cases, it's just that they don't know any better because they don't have a better example.
Right.
Okay, there's this whole, I don't want to really launch into this whole thing, but there's this whole circle that goes on where what it amounts to at its most basic is input A gives output B, which gives input A again. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. That is a cycle. Sometimes it's a cycle of abuse. Sometimes it's a cycle of violence. Sometimes it's whatever. Okay. But that's the basics of it. Input A gives output B, which gives input A again. And it just keeps going that way. You have to physically, well, I don't want to say physically because that's not quite right, but you have to intentionally interrupt that cycle in order to break it.
Right.
And you cannot interrupt that cycle by forcing that person off on their own. Because there's no way. They don't have the tools. They don't have the experience. They don't have the example to do it any way other than the way they are doing it.
Well, what are the psychological effects of exile and ostracization. That's a tough one to
ostracizing. Yes.
Yeah, the noun form of that is a tough one, huh?
Yeah, it is. I know them as a layman.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't. Again, I haven't got a degree in this. I just did the work.
Right.
What happens is that person just gets worse. Okay. Whatever it is that you're ostracizing them because of, they get worse because they don't have any way to get better. And so all they can feed on is themselves. All right. And, you know, it's basically, we might as well use the metaphor of the snake eating its own tail. That's all it can do, you know, and at the end is, you know, essentially destruction in one form or another.
Right. And then they and at that point, they'll build resentment toward the in-group that they are not a part of, will they not?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
So,
yeah.
I mean, so they actually become a danger to that group.
And if it gets really bad, the other thing that happens is that they begin enacting the things that are causing them problems. They begin enacting on other people. Okay. Because now, since that's the only example that they've got, they feel like that's the way everybody is. And that's the way everybody is supposed to be treated. Okay. That's how the cycle of abuse begins and then is perpetuated. Is you got treated this way. It's the only example you have. It's the only way you know how to treat people. So it's how you treat those around you. And then you perpetuate it onto them. It actually does more to increase the amount of abuse in the world, to ostracize them and isolate them, than it does to eliminate it from the world. People need examples. You don't even have to, it's not even like you have to sit them down and talk to them all the time about their behaviors. And I don't have time to invest that sort of effort into somebody. I don't have time to be a human being to another human being.
Well, see, when someone says that, like, they are so concerned about creating a better world that they are willing to excise someone from that world that does not fit the worldview, but they are not concerned enough to actually make the effort to make that person better. Right. That sort of belies the hypocrisy of the whole thing. It's like that your motive is not really... See, now I'm ascribing a motive, which is always dangerous. So I'm going to back off. Right. I'm not ascribing a motive. Right. I'm just saying effectively, you're undoing the good that you think you want to do.
And this is my point, is it doesn't actually take additional time and effort on your part to really show people that there is a different or better way to act, think, behave, whatever you want to call it, okay? A better way to get along in the world. You just have to be a human being who is not doing things in the same way that other human being is doing them.
Yeah.
Okay? That's all it is. You are an example, whether you, again, gosh, this sounds familiar to something I've said before. You are an example, whether you want to be or not.
Oh, but now you're asking people to just take responsibility for the way they behave.
See, I know. And
accept the fact that every choice you make has an effect beyond you.
Yeah, exactly.
And be responsible for that. Oh,
and
no.
it's that's so hardcore. I know it's impossible to do. You just have to be a different person than the person next to you. That's all it is. Okay? If you want somebody to change, right? You can absolutely sit down and have the conversation with them about what needs to change, how they need to change it, blah, 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 blah. Okay? You can have that adult conversation. And for most people, that is sufficient. Okay? But you will always have those people who don't get it, who don't understand that, who don't have an idea of a better way to do a thing. And those people will improve not by sitting down and telling them, no, you've got to be a better person and you can't think that and you can't say that and blah, 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 blah. No, They will improve by seeing the example of other people living their normal everyday lives. All right. And wanting to be part of that, learning to normalize their thoughts and behaviors and whatnot to something that isn't likely. And I have to be really careful with normalized thoughts and behaviors.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Because normalize is only normal for a given value of normal.
Of course.
Right. But we'll be able to modify those behaviors based on your example. Like, if you go into the army, right, they tell you how to march.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Because they want you to march. But how do you actually learn to march?
You're imitating all the people around you.
Exactly.
You're just learning to move in lockstep. I mean,
you learn to move with the people around you. That's
right.
That's the essence of marching.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. And it's more or less the same thing when you get somebody who has, I'll just say, left field attitudes and behaviors,
mm-hmm.
to bring them more towards the general group consensus of how those things are supposed to actually happen. They just need the examples in most cases.
Right. But then you have people who turn around and who will say, well, why is it anybody's responsibility to learn how to march? Just let them be who they are.
And you can. If that's okay with you, that's fine.
Though, except
but the minute it's...
well, number one, you are probably going to be marching alone.
Mm-hmm.
That's the first thing to accept. And number two, if you join the group and then do not march to the point where you're bouncing off other people and preventing them from getting where they're trying to go, because that's the point of marching, is that we have agreed that this is where we want to go, and this is where we're starting, and this is the best way to get from here to there. Expect them to ask you not to be a part of the group or to learn to march.
Right.
It's one of the things, like, I think one of the definitions of growing up is learning to balance your own individualism with the fact that you are also irrevocably a part of a society.
Mm-hmm.
And while you have a responsibility to be true to yourself, you also have a responsibility to the society around you, and you have to learn how to balance those two things. And it is not acceptable to simply say, I will just do my own thing and society will accept it, because that is not how people get from point A to point B.
Nope. You can be a rugged individualist, that's fine.
Mm-hmm.
But your rugged individualism has a place in the society at large.
Yeah. And there are times when you swallow it too.
Mm-hmm.
I love people who do things like they'll go to job interviews and they won't dress nice to make a point about how, they shouldn't have to just dress nice because that's what society demands. It's like, well, yeah, okay. But that's also a sign of respect. That's also a sign of saying, I value this job opportunity enough to make an effort in my own appearance.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not just society putting these irrational demands on you. It's a show of respect. It's a symbolic gesture, that kind of a thing.
Mm-hmm.
But if people don't think through it that way,
it's okay to keep with your dress for an interview example here. It's saying I'm willing to make the effort to be part of this organization.
Yeah.
Okay, that's more. It's respect and all that stuff, but that's the big signal. Is I'm willing to make the effort to be a part of this organization, to attempt to fit in here well enough that you will continue to pay me for the work that I do.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, showing up without that is basically saying this doesn't matter to me. I'm not here for any good reason. I'm just here.
Yeah,
because I'm not going to try to fit in. I'm not going to try to work with you. I'm not going to do anything that means that I'm not the sole unique individual that I am.
You owe me this job.
Mm-hmm.
Done and done. And that is where this begins and ends. This is not a give or take. This is you owe me this job. I mean, and I use dressing for a job interview as an example because I've given a few job interviews two people and there were a few people who came in and just who were exactly like that. They dressed in frumpy clothes, and at the time, some of them I was giving as a part of the accounting office that I worked at, and some of them I was helping clients hire people for their businesses because I was helping. Yeah, I was a small business accountant.
Right.
And before then, it was because I was a manager at a bank. I was a supervisor at a retail store and stuff like that. So I've given enough job interviews, and I've given job interviews with the people who did not make the effort, and that is the general attitude they walk in with. Is this is a one-sided exchange here. You will give me the job because I deserve the job. And it's like, no, job is a two-way street. You're offering your work, we're offering pay, and you're offering to be an asset to the company, and we're offering to pay you what that is worth. It's an exchange. It's a free exchange of things, your service for money. But, from age of 16 on to the present day, I have never gone to a job interview without at least wearing a shirt and tie. I mean, I haven't always been in the financial position to have a suit.
Right.
But I applied, I was working at McDonald's at 18 or 19, my first year in college, I guess. So 19. And I showed up to the job interview in a suit for McDonald's. And the manager was like, wow, you really dressed up for this. It's a job interview. It's polite. Yeah. I appreciate your time. I respect you. I know it's just McDonald's, and that's because I happened to have a suit at that point. So that's what I wore. But before that, I showed up for a gas station job in a shirt and tie. Just to be a gas station attendant or a clerk. Work behind the register.
Right.
But it's a sign of respect. It's a sign that you're willing to make the effort. And I had people who interviewed who they were clearly wearing their best. Even if it was just the nicest pair of jeans they had, a polo shirt, and black sneakers and socks. Right? It was still, they clearly wore their best. And that's what we were looking for. It just showed that they thought the job was worth the effort. And it tells you something about their work ethic. Man, we are really far afield here.
We are far afield, but there you go. I just want to drive home the point that you cannot claim to be an inclusive table or an inclusive gamer or participate in inclusive gaming events if you exclude certain types of people, regardless of what those types of people are.
Right.
And you do not do those people any favors at all by excluding them. You, in fact, remove from them the opportunity to improve.
I'm going to add to this, and I'm going to say that there are people who will say, well, there are certain types of people who do not deserve inclusion because of their viewpoints, because they are evil, toxic, whatever. And I'm going to say this, then you do not believe in inclusion, because anybody can include people who think just like they do. That's not inclusion. Inclusion is when you actually have to make an effort to bring in people who you do not see eye to eye with, who you have fundamental differences with. Okay, it's kind of like free speech. People say, I'm for free speech, but not this type of free speech. It's like, then that's not free speech. Anybody can be for being able to freely say things that you agree with. The rubber hits the road test for tolerance, for inclusion, for freedom, for all of that is when you have someone that you fundamentally are different from or disagree with or whatever. Does your values still hold? And if the answer is no, then you are not inclusive, you are not diverse, you are not for freedom, because you're just for the people you agree with. And anyone can do that. That's easy mode. Okay. Mm-hmm. The real test is if you can sit across a table from someone who you know disagrees fundamentally with your lifestyle and still have a friendly game and a friendly conversation, you know, and still treat them like a human being as long as they are still treating you like a human being.
Yes. And again, emphasizing it does not matter what side you believe yourself or them to be on.
Right.
This applies equally to all sides.
Mm-hmm. That's why things like gaming are so important. It's these sorts of hobbies that give you a common ground with people who you otherwise would not have an opportunity to talk to or deal with. And, you know, and there is a value in sharing your life with people who don't think like you. It makes you a smarter person. Either it tests your beliefs so that they come out stronger, or it teaches you things you didn't know about the world. Because somebody who doesn't agree with you may raise a point and you'll say, hey, I never looked at things that way. And if you're really an intellectually honest person and you want to find out, if you want to know what's true, you know, it starts with filling your head with as many different ideas as possible and letting them all fight it out. Well, can I shift topics to gaming here?
I would, well, yeah, why not? Might as well give it a shot. It could work on this program.
Yeah, crazy as it's because I mean there is an interesting. I don't know if this is too much to throw out as the listener question, but I'm going to try and I'm going to throw it at you too. Okay. So, as I mentioned last week, I have been playing Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild, which is a very good game, which I'm enjoying immensely. I do not think it is the best game in the Legend of Zelda series.
Okay.
But once again, as I said last time, because I realized that I did sing it some high praise last time, didn't I?
Yeah.
Wait.
Maybe a little bit.
And then, so I had to dial back and say, because I was going to say, it's not the game that everybody thinks it is. It's not that great, but here's all the reasons why it's pretty well done. Okay. And I mentioned the sort of scavenger hunt aspect, right? The exploration thing.
Right.
Where there's all these little forest spirits called Koroks hidden around the world in little odd out of the way places. So if you notice something that is odd or out of the way, you walk over there and you examine the thing and it's like, oh, this seems to be out of place, and you move it into place, and then bada bing, you get a little fanfare and a fairy appears and you get a seed that you can spend for an upgrade. Huzzah. Right?
Right.
And there have been a number of games that have done this sort of scavenger hunt stuff. I particularly liked it in the 2016 now? The re-release of Doom, or the reboot of Doom.
Right. I think that was
2016.
Yeah, I think it was 2016.
Where they had the collectibles all hidden around the map. And it was the same thing where you would have to notice like a little cave opening or something and then poke in there. And then you would find like a door, and then you would have to find the lever for the door. So you would have to kind of pull this, like you look around at the map and it's like, oh, if there's that little ledge up there that I can see, how would I get up there and do that? Right. And for a certain type of gameplay, that is very satisfying. And they do it, Breath of the Wild does it particularly well because there's enough stuff to find in the world that if you're just wandering across the landscape, it seems to be spaced out at just the perfect moment where just before you're like, oh man, this is so pointless, I never find anything. You find something.
That's a technique.
Yeah, I am well aware that they spaced out every discovery on the map purposely. And they also did it, they were also smart enough to put some spots on the map where there isn't something. They're like, you open up the map and you're looking at it, you're like, there should be something here. And then you check it and there isn't. And it's like, okay, I guess not. Right? Because that's important too.
Sure.
Otherwise, checking every corner isn't a choice, right?
Right.
Okay. So now here's the thing. Thinking about tabletop role-playing games, Because I'm always thinking about tabletop role-playing games whenever I'm playing a video game.
Sure.
Okay? How do you get that same feeling? Because here's the problem. For anything to be worth checking or interacting with, as a GM, you have to describe it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So as a GM, basically, the players are in a completely pitch dark world. They can see nothing. Through your narrative, you have a spotlight because you describe the things in the world. Right? So, you'll just, over in that corner is a treasure chest, and over there is a statue, and across the room is a door, and there's a mysterious apparatus over there. Right? And you're basically shining your light through the darkness and highlighting those 4 things as these are things that you can interact with in the world. Right?
Mm-hmm.
The problem is, merely by doing that, you're kind of doing most of the work because you're already telling the players what they notice as out of the way and interesting. Do you know what I mean?
Sure.
So it's like, imagine if in Legend of Zelda, you couldn't move on the map at all.
Right.
It's just that there are certain nodes on the map that you can click on, and now you're here, and now you're here, and now you're here. Then it's just simply a matter of checking every node for something, right? It's a matter of just brute force. You don't get that sense of you, through your own awareness, noticing something odd, right? Like you're looking around the landscape, and it's like, hey, it's funny how those 3 trees make a perfect triangle with a big tall tree in the middle. I should go check that because that seems like a something. Or you're standing on top of a high place and you notice in the distance a flat topped thing, and you think it's a rock, and then you realize it must be a tower. And it's like, well, I'll make my way over there.
That's tricky. Well, I mean, I don't think you really can in a tabletop game. But
let's say for the sake of argument, you can.
Okay.
Because it's impossible is not a satisfying answer.
No, I understand
that. Everything is impossible until it's been done.
2 truths and a lie.
Okay.
Oh dear. Okay. So you have a room description. Okay.
Yeah.
And in this room are X number of objects. Which can either be or not be interacted with, which may either do or not do something.
Uh-huh.
What if every room had sort of the same number of interactables?
Okay. And by room, you mean any scene in the adventure?
Sure.
Yeah. So like a forest clearing would have 5 interactables just like anything else.
Right. But only some of those interactables actually did anything.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And which ones did or didn't do something? No, it's not going to work. You can't do it randomly. You have to plan it out.
Right. Because there has to be a way for the players to, through their own cleverness, say, there must be something to that particular thingy.
Right.
And if I check it, it's going to be rewarding.
Because in my head, it's like, okay, you open the door to the room. There's a desk, there's a chair, there's a rug, and there's a painting.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe the desk and the rug are the things that have rewarding interactions.
Right.
Okay. Mm-hmm. But how do you, I mean, it seems like the nature of players to me, I guess, is that they're going to interact with everything anyway.
Right.
So there's not really any point in trying to be too clever about it because they're going to move and touch and pull and pry and all that kind of stuff. Absolutely everything that you mentioned.
Right. And as a GM, because of basically Chekhov's gun,
mm-hmm.
it is in your nature to only mention things that have some significance.
Right.
So so those 2 things together add up to this problem.
Mm-hmm. Because as GMs, we're always in the realm of, I don't want my players going wildly off track, right? I don't want them ascribing significance to a thing that is just window dressing. Or I don't want them pursuing thing X when really it's thing Y that they need to be going after. So GMing adventure design tells me don't include things that aren't crucial.
Right.
Don't throw things in your description that aren't going to be important in some way, because players will automatically assume anything you've taken the trouble to describe is significant.
Right. And players have been trained to believe that.
So I have to retrain all my players and B, redesign the entire way descriptions work. So that when a player walks into the room and sees the desk, the chair, the rug, and the painting, it's up to them to work out which of those things is an actual thing they should worry about and which of those things are not things they should worry about.
But still, why won't they just search everything?
Well, like I said, you have to retrain them.
But okay. But let me ask you this. So let's say you have a list of 5 things in the room.
Sure.
One of them has a treasure. The others are completely useless. Okay. Even without assuming player training, and even assuming that there could be between 0 and 5 treasures,
right?
You've got 5 objects. None of them could hide. It's possible that there's nothing in any of them. Or it's possible that any or all of them have something useful, right?
Right.
Is it not the optimal strategy for you to search every one of those 5 things?
Oh, absolutely it is.
So then how do you make that not the best way to play?
Well, there have to be penalties for the things you do search that aren't the thing that you're supposed to be searching.
So anything that doesn't contain a treasure has a trap.
Yeah, exactly. Has some sort of penalty to it.
That's actually very interesting because, like, as we sit here and talk about this, so a certain number of trees in Breath of the Wild, if you climb them, have hidden forest fairies on top.
Right.
And they are usually like the tallest tree in the area or whatever. But why I don't climb every tree I encounter.
No.
Okay, I only climb the trees that seem to potentially have something going on.
Right.
Right? So the question, wait, what are you laughing at?
I'm thinking through this in my head, and I'm looking in my head at a forest of trees. How do I know which tree to climb? Because the appropriate tree is in some way distinct from all the rest of the trees.
Right.
Okay. You're saying it's taller, and I'm thinking to myself, okay, what if I'm standing in the middle of the forest and can't tell which tree is the tallest? Well, then it would probably have some sort of pattern on the bark or some sort of, rock positioned next to it to tell me that that's a significant tree. Or because otherwise, if they don't do that, you literally have to check every single tree.
Right.
There has to be some sort of visual indicator. Now, okay.
But
it could be an audio indicator too, I guess. But the thing is, if I'm going to translate that to the tabletop, that leads to there's a bunch of trees and one of them is significantly taller than the other.
Right.
And we're right back to square one.
Right. Then all I have done is say, okay, go look there. Okay. But at the same time, like you said, I'm asking myself, why don't I climb every tree in Breath of the Wild?
Because they don't have the special mark.
Well, it's more than, if there is the potential that any one of those trees could have something in it.
Sure.
Now, the trees that do have something in it are usually distinct, but they are distinct in a number of different ways.
Right.
Okay, to the point where it's sort of like noticing the odd one out. It's like you can't tell that the tree is special, except if you happen to notice it happens to be the one pine tree in all of the oak trees. right?
Right.
In which case, some people will overlook that. Okay. But here's the question. If I am not particularly good at noticing the odd tree out, say, why do I not merely climb every tree in Breath of the Wild?
Well, because in part of the reason I think is because it's the metagame. You know, the designers did not put something in the top of every single tree.
Right.
And you know there has to be a way to tell which trees have the thing and which trees don't.
Okay. But even so, why not just climb every tree?
It's a waste of time.
That's it.
There's no payoff for it.
Well, there's a cost to climbing each tree.
Right.
I'm not doing anything else in the game. And I only have an hour to play video games every morning. That's all I get.
Right.
So I could spend that entire hour climbing every tree in the forest. And then I would be playing this game forever. And eventually I would have all of the Korok seeds and I would never have beaten the game. But the problem with D&D then, or with tabletop role-playing games, is the amount of time wasted on that stuff is almost trivial.
Right.
Because I'll go search the desk. You don't find anything. I'll go search the carpet. You don't find anything. I'll go search the bookcase. You don't find anything. Or at best, it's a die roll and you don't find anything. But any amount of time can be condensed down to nothing in a role-playing game.
Yeah.
Through the magic of narrative. So as a GM, should I maybe draw out the description and make searching things as tedious as possible? I mean, would that work? Hypothetically. All right. You go over to the bookcase and you begin searching it from the top left shelf. You pull out a number of books, open each one, blow the dust off each cover, and they all appear to be normal books. The script is faded and aged, and you choke a bit as the dust blows back into your face. You replace them all and move on to the next shelf. Running your finger across it, you find no interesting titles whatsoever. You pat behind the books and you can feel nothing. And just waste 5 minutes of time describing that.
I mean, it's certainly one strategy, but I feel like while I might appreciate the level of immersion for the first 2 or 3 of those, I feel like by hour 2, I'd be threatening to strangle you.
Well, yeah, except that you wouldn't want to search anything unless you had a good reason to think there was something there.
So we are back to you are retraining your players.
Well, yeah, but my question wasn't to retrain the players. My question is how? What do you do in a role-playing game to add a cost to searching such that the players won't climb every tree?
Okay.
Such that if you include 5 interactable objects in a room, they'll ask probing questions before they decide which one to search. It's like, I'll look up at the top of the trees. Are any of them taller than the others?
Yeah. I mean, there's always the timed objective.
Yeah.
So that the more time
you can't do that in every adventure.
No, you can't. You can't. Yeah.
And for something like this, because ransacking rooms and searching rooms and interacting with objects is something that comes up in every game. So the solution has to be more universal than that.
Can I ask you I want to sort of flip a question around on you.
Okay.
All right. Go back to your tree example, right?
Okay.
There's a forest full of trees. One of them happens to be taller than the others. Yada, yada, yada.
Sure.
And then we talked about being in the forest and trying to figure out how to tell whether a given tree was a significant tree or not. And then we stopped and we said, well, how do you tell, And I'm just wondering if we turn that question on its head a little bit and go, well, how do you know the other trees aren't significant? Mm-hmm. Which we kind of touched on a little bit, but I think we get to a slightly different answer I'm not assembling this question very well. The way you tell a tree is significant is that all the other trees around it aren't.
Right.
Okay. And I'm wondering if that gets us anywhere.
Okay.
In terms of how you would present a description that allows for the players to discover the thing that is significant without pointing it out directly.
Yeah. I think you sort of have something there. It's like, how do you present a description that leaves open questions that if the players ask the right questions, it's sort of like that whole, it's almost like trying to create a lateral thinking problem. The guy leaves home, he runs straight for a little while and he makes a left turn, then he runs straight for a little while and he makes a runs straight, makes another left turn, then he runs straight. He arrives back at home and there's a man with a mask waiting for him. Right? What's going on? And you then, through yes or no questions, you're supposed to tease out that it's a baseball game.
Yeah.
Right? It's kind of like that. It's like, how do you create a description where the players would suddenly say, hold on a second, is there something odd about one of these trees? And you say, well, what, it's like, well, what do you mean? What are you doing? It's like, well, are all the trees the same height? And I could say, no, one is significantly taller than the others, Which, I realize that as a GM now, that kind of goes against your instincts because you want to, as a GM, you're supposed to be the eyes and the ears of the party. So if one of the trees is significantly taller than the others, then it is your job, your duty to say that. By waiting for the players to ask that question, you are hiding something behind the narrative. You're using the nature of the game to hide information.
Right.
But if it's done properly, and then it does allow the players to create this sense, to get this feeling of, I asked the right questions to notice the one odd thing. Is that okay?
Yeah. Admittedly, you do run into the other half of the problem, which is if they fail the thing and they never notice the thing they need to notice,
Well, then, obviously you still have to use good design strategies on top of this. Right. In Breath of the Wild, all of these things are optional. They make the game easier to play, but you don't need them. Which, hiding an optional treasure, if you search the room, because GMs have done this, if you search the room really thoroughly, you will, you'll turn up a loose flagstone in the fireplace, and underneath it is a ruby.
Right.
That kind of crap. That's been done countless times, and it's just, do the players think to roll a search check in this room? But that's a stupid question because the answer should be yes. The players, in the absence of any cost, the players will always roll a search check in every room, So there's nothing exciting about discovering the ruby in the fireplace if all you had to do was press the search button and then the die roll said you can have it. It's not the same as, I wonder if there's anything hidden in the flagstones of the fireplace. This is the only, this whole place is,
we're in central heating here. Why is there a fireplace?
Why is there a fireplace? And that's where you discover the secret door.
Right.
I think, remember the movie Sneakers?
Yeah.
There's the scene where because they broke into the scientist's office and he's been working on an electronic device, and they have a camera pan across the office and they can't find the electronic device. And, the one guy is rattling off all the stuff on his desk. He's like, okay, he's got a phone, an answering machine, yada, yada, yada. And then the blind guy says, the electronic device is hidden between his phone and his pencil cup. And I was like, why do you say that? And he said, because if you listen to the voiceover, the guy is talking off camera and he says he has an answering service. So why does he have an answering machine? And it's that sort of thing. It's like, why does he need an answering machine if he has a message service?
What does God need with a spaceship?
Right. Well, that's sort of different. That's different and makes me sad, sir.
Oh yeah. I'm sitting here thinking through.
Oh yeah, Leonard, you think you could do a good movie about whales? Well, fine. I'm going to meet God.
That's right.
And everybody will love my movie more.
I'm thinking about a bookshelf. Okay?
Uh-huh.
And on this bookshelf, they're all the books are red, except for one blue book.
Right.
Okay, so you're an adventurer. You come into this room. I tell you, I read, there's a carpet and there's walls, there are oak and all that. And there's a bookshelf with a bunch of red books and one blue one on it. What do you naturally do?
I'm going to immediately go over and pull I'm going to pull the blue book off the bookshelf.
Right. Because it's clearly the different thing,
Right. Yes.
So if we consider, how do we hide a blue book in a red bookshelf or a shelf with all red books? How do we hide it in such a way that it has to be discovered by the players? How would you do that?
I could cover all the books with dust so that their colors are not visible unless someone goes over and examines the bookshelf and then brushes the dust off the books.
Okay. So now we go into the room. There's a carpet. There's oak paneling on the walls. La la la. There's a long bookshelf covered with many dusty books.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And now the blue book is sufficiently obscured. We haven't lied. We haven't not told them all the information they're entitled to.
Right.
But it takes a further action for them to discover that there's something significant there.
Right. But now here's my question. We said, what was there? A rug and a bookshelf?
Yeah. Rug, oak paneling, and a bookshelf.
Okay. So what prevents the players from, I'm going to go search the rug. Okay. And now I'm going to go search the oak paneling. Now I'm going to go search the bookshelf.
How are you going to search the rug?
I don't know. I got to pick it up and see if there's anything underneath it.
Okay. You find that there's a bottom of a rug underneath the rug.
No, I mean the floor. What's the floor under the rug look like?
Right. I think, but what I'm getting at is I think the manner in which you search should be specified.
Yeah, but now it still just comes down to process of elimination.
Right.
Because,
goblins jump out at you as soon as you pick up the rug.
Yeah. See, I think you need to, I think it does have to be a combination of things.
Mm-hmm.
I think the time spent on searching has to have a cost.
Mm-hmm.
I think that a certain amount of the time when you search something, there should be a negative outcome. I'm going to go reach into the fire. I'm going to reach my hand into the fireplace and pat around and see if there's any loose bricks. It's like, you withdraw your hand because there's a sudden sharp pain. You got bit by a poisonous spider that was hiding in the bookshelf.
Right.
And then it's scuttled away. So a certain number of things, if you search them, they have to hurt you.
Mm-hmm. It doesn't have to be everything.
Right. Just enough that there's a risk.
Right.
Okay, but and then you also have to go with the obscurement, where some of the things take a couple of actions or a couple of questions. Like the players can't simply say, "Okay, I'll use the bookshelf."
Mm-hmm.
Like in a video game, you would just walk up to the bookshelf and press A, and then it would swing open. It's like it can't be just I use the bookshelf. What do you mean you use the sword? I wave it around to see if it's magic. It's not a lightsaber.
Right.
I guess now we have to link that, don't we?
Yeah.
I can't remember who that was by.
I can't either.
Uh-oh.
But this I think is going to be an interesting listener question.
Yeah.
See what they come up with.
Yep. And by the way, by submitting any answer to any of our comments, you realize that your answer becomes the sole property of